So we're going to start off today with a review of technology services. We know we've got some new faces, not just people here at the meeting, but also folks who might be actually watching this online after the fact. So it seemed like a good idea just to go through and have a quick review of what exactly SELCO does in the realm of technology. The integrated library system, of course, is the core of an automated system, of an automated library, excuse me. An integrated library system, or ILS, is the system that handles most of the inventory management functions for a library. So that involves a database of patrons, or borrowers, as Horizon refers to them, records for titles, and even records for items. The database keeps tracks of the transactions, which items are checked out to which patrons at any given moment. How are those titles being added to the collection? How do we modify them when they need to be changed? That patron comes in with a new address, for example. All of these aspects of inventory control are tracked by the ILS. Now, in keeping with SELCO's federated nature, Horizon, of course, has to have lots of settings that allow for local control of collections. So every library can have their own due dates, fines, and things like that. Some libraries have chosen to standardize with each other, which is great, but Horizon does support that full local control. Probably about half, 50% of the help desk tickets that we do and the staff's time that we spend here are spent on issues directly related to the ILS. So it really is the core service that we provide. Just to give you some idea of the scope, we have almost 616,000 title records in Horizon and just over 244,000 patrons. And everyone in the region is contributing to those databases. Those are not just being put in by SELCO. So everybody give yourself a pat on the back. And when you get home, give your staff a pat on the back because they're working very hard. Now, inventory is great. We've got to have inventory control. If the books and the DVDs aren't on the shelf and the patrons aren't in the system, nobody can check out anything. But a library needs more than just that. So we have findability, also known as the online catalog. And SELCO uses Enterprise for that. That is the web-based point of entry for most library services. So when your patrons want to look something up, they go to Enterprise. If they want to see their account and find out what they have checked out and what the due dates are and what fines they might owe, they can also do that in Enterprise. It's even gotten to the point now where they can get to ebooks through that portal. So for your patrons, Enterprise really is the face of the ILS. It's designed specifically for patrons. Any of you who have been around libraries for any length of time have your own specialized tricks that you use to find things, and those may or may not be supported in the Enterprise catalog, something that we do hear about from time to time. But the philosophy behind the catalog was that anything that's not really accessible to patrons is just getting in their way. So we deliberately decided to exclude a lot of that. Enterprise offers patrons a lot of tools for honing in on their search. After they've made the search, faceted browsing allows them to pick out subsets of items. So maybe I've put in Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I only want the Little House books. I don't want the biography. I don't want the TV show on DVD. I just want the books. I can break that whole search set down by books or by a subject heading, like Little House, or various things like that. I can also sort those by date of entry into the catalog if that's more useful. We haven't quite got to the point where you can break it down by the color of the book jacket, although I know people come to the reference desk and ask for that. I need that blue book I had. Well, we're not quite there on that, but we do have quite a few other tools that patrons can use. Again, keeping with the federated nature of the region, we do try to provide some local customization. Every library has a profile, which allows them to have some control over the graphics in the catalog and the informational links that are there, links to your homepage, for example, and other things that the library might decide to have. We also offer rooms, which are kind of hard to explain. Rachel's going to be talking about them later on today. But they're basically areas where we can put external content and also pre-canned searches and other ways to interact with the catalog. And those are also selectable by library. So we do have some options there for each library to make the enterprise catalog their own. Cataloging. Can't talk about the ILS without cataloging. Now, according to the SELCO website, cataloging is the virtual representation of physical material, which is another way of saying we create database records for books, DVDs, cooking pans, chainsaws, CDs, whatever you might have in your collection.
Snowshoes.
Snowshoes, good example.
Bicycles.
Bicycles. So without those records, of course, you can't do inventory control in Horizon. Patrons can't find them in Enterprise. So cataloging is the art and science of creating those records. And those records make it possible then for patrons to find the material that they're looking for, which, after all, is what this is all about. I'm really underselling cataloging when I describe it that way. There's a whole lot more involved. So if you are a cataloger, pat yourself on the back. If you know a cataloger, pat them on the back, or if you feel it's appropriate, give them a hug. If you can do that without creating a problem, because everything we do really rides on those catalog records. Nobody notices cataloging when it's done well. When it's not done well, we all notice it, because nothing works if the cataloging records aren't right. And there's a lot more to the ILS, of course. There's reports through the online report system, e-commerce, which allows patrons to use credit cards to pay for fines and fees, either at the library or at home on the internet. Self-check units for libraries that have chosen to allow patrons to handle their own transactions, which can also take credit cards if the library chooses to do so. Student data loads for school media centers. Every year in August and early September, we start creating lots of data loads for the different schools so that they can just put those right into their student management systems and not have to create those by hand. These are all services that are covered under the ILS. And there's more, but we can't go over everything today or else we'll be here till noon. And then there is BookMine. It is fast becoming a mobile world. So we need to have a mobile solution, which is BookMine. And stick around because Tyler's going to be talking more about that in just a little while. Interlibrary loan and delivery. These are the services that really leverage the power of cooperating libraries in a consortia. Interlibrary loan is resource sharing. Borrowers at one library checking out materials from another library. Libraries helping each other so that not everyone has to have every single thing out there. We can all work together to serve the needs of our patrons without every library having to carry the full load on their own. Now the ILS manages sharing within the region. So patrons within the SELCO region selecting materials from different libraries, Horizon handles that. SELCO provides reimbursement to libraries for materials that are lost or damaged as part of the ILL process. So you can lend those materials to a patron at another library and not have to worry if they're going to lose the book or destroy the DVD or something along those lines. And since we can connect with Horizon to the statewide system that is run by Minitex through the MinLink gateway, we can also get materials from outside the SELCO region in the event that we can't satisfy a patron's request. So really, in effect, the entire state of Minnesota becomes the library for every patron in southeastern Minnesota. Now, there's not much point to any of that if we can't get the materials to where they need to go. So when the patron in one library wants a piece of material from another library, that's where delivery comes in. SELCO staff sort the materials to make sure that every single item gets to where it's supposed to go. And then we have couriers who deliver the materials. And you see those couriers mostly every day. 3,000 items pass through SELCO delivery every single business day. So that just gives you some idea of the scale of things back there. And kind of like cataloging, I'm underselling them just a little bit, because those folks have to be here every single day, and they have to be on top of their game every single day, or 3,000 items starts to pile up, and nobody likes that. So there's a lot that goes into that. Now, without PCs to run the ILS software and run Enterprise, and an internet connection to get those services to the patrons and to the library staff, then none of this would mean a whole lot. So, of course, we support PCs and internet. Our PC support service is one of, if not the most popular value-added service that we provide, value-added services being the optional ones. PC leasing is there for libraries that are not interested in purchasing their PCs but want to lease them, so they have just a single annual payment, and every 3 years just get new PCs. SELCO can manage all of that. PC support and PC leasing really go good when they're together. They're both pretty awesome on their own, but when you put them together, SELCO pretty much handles everything from cradle to grave for those PCs. We bring them out, we deploy them, we set them up the way you want us to. We fix them when they're broken. If you need to make changes on them, we help you with that. And then when 3 years is up and it's time for those PCs to be sent on so that you can get new ones, we come and box them all up and ship them back and put the new ones in. So together, those two services really form a very integrated PC management solution for the libraries. We also do quarterly technology purchases, both for libraries that are participating in PC support, but also for libraries that choose to get their PCs on their own. And some libraries even get them on their own but still have us support them, so you have some options there. So 4 times a year, quarterly is 4. 4 times a year we make PC technology purchases, and you can get PCs as well as a wide range of other pieces of equipment. Scanners, printers, thumb drives, whatever you might need. And of course I have to mention Pharos, which is also one of our top 2 or 3 value-added services. And if those of you who have ever used Pharos, you know how critical that is. Pharos is the software that manages internet queues. So when patrons are stacked up for internet stations, Pharos will keep track of who arrived first and who gets the next PC. It will also enforce your time limits. So you're no longer the one in the middle between patrons who are arguing about who gets to use the PC next. And you're also not over there right in the patron's personal space if it comes time to actually close that machine down because of a problem. So Pharos is really invaluable. We support 537 PCs through the PC support service at 33 online libraries. So as I said, that is one of our most popular services. And then there is internet. Now, schools mostly supply their internet on their own. So we don't have a whole lot of involvement in school media centers and their internet. But we do provide internet connectivity for the public libraries. In addition to that, we manage E-rate for the public libraries, which pays for more than 50% of the internet connectivity costs. And believe me, if you've ever seen the E-rate paperwork, you'll want to give us a pat on the back for that, because believe me, it ain't fun. We manage security for your internet connectivity through the router, which has a built-in firewall. And we also handle filtering for those. We're not all crazy about the concept of filtering as a general principle, but the law does require it if we want all that funding that we require. So we have done our best to provide a filtering solution that is effective without overreaching. And I think for the most part we've done that. It does also provide libraries with the ability to white or blacklist if you have local needs that are not handled by the filtering software right out of the box. That's built into the router, so you never see it. It's not on the PCs. It's just part of the firewall and router. We also provide Wi-Fi services. Those of you who have been to a few of these meetings know that that was something that used to be an optional service. We're now providing it for anyone who wants it as part of your basic fees. So if you're trying to provide Wi-Fi for staff and patrons, let us know and we can help you with that. So as I mentioned, we provide internet connectivity for 36 online libraries. And to do that, we deal with 14 different internet service providers because we don't really have just one provider that covers the entire region. And even if we did, that would be dull. Once you have all these services, it doesn't really help a whole lot if patrons don't know what you're doing. And while there are lots of ways to reach patrons, I think it's safe to say that websites and the web are becoming one of the most prominent. So we offer WordPress library blogs as a good tool for creating a quick and easy web presence. There are certainly lots of ways to get a website up, but we support WordPress as the easiest option. WordPress provides a very simple way to get a website up, keep it populated with up-to-date information, and put any other kind of information into the website. It's very easy to work with WordPress. You don't have to know HTML. There's a nice GUI interface, graphical user interface, and it's pretty easy to use, and we do provide training on that. WordPress blogs for the libraries, as well as our own blog, site, are all hosted outside of the SELCO office. We have a contract with a data center company for that kind of hosting. So in the rare event that we have a problem here with our internet connectivity, your websites don't go down. And that's pretty cool. We also provide Horizon plugins. And this is why Terry is just so much more than just a technical guy. Horizon plugins plug into your WordPress page and pull data directly from Horizon in real time. So you can have an up-to-date display of new books at the library, new DVDs based on TV shows. Actually, I don't know if that's one of the options, but it gives you some idea of the kind of stuff that Terry's working on. New fiction, for example, bestsellers, things like that. These can all be graphically displayed with book jackets and everything right in your website. And since they're being pulled from Horizon in real time, it's always up to date. You don't have to go in and update that list. So no more printing out a list of all the new books and putting it out there. It's right there on the website. And finally, we have to talk about electronic resources. That ranges from research databases up through ebooks. We provide a couple of different ebook platforms depending on what kind of library you're in. For school media centers, we provide access to Mac and VIA. And for public libraries, we provide Overdrive. So libraries can select ebooks. If you want to kick some money over to us, we will purchase the ebooks that you want. Otherwise, you can certainly tell us what you think we should be collecting, and then we add to that collection as best we can. The ebooks are available to all patrons of that type of library, so all public library patrons have access to the Overdrive books. With school media centers, it works much the same way. I'm looking at Ann to make sure I'm saying that right. So that platform is available for the school media centers and their students. We also provide training and support for most ebook platforms. Now, I'll be honest with you, there's no substitute for local library staff right there ready to answer patron questions. If patrons have questions on their platform, their Nooks or their Kindle or whatever, we will try to answer those as best we can. But we also try to provide training and support for the library staff so that you can do that directly with your patrons. And then Overdrive has created quite a bit of online information for the various kinds of ebook readers that we can also steer you towards. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also now pull most of those ebooks down directly through the enterprise catalog, which is a fairly new feature. There are a couple of different kinds of research databases. These are mostly the databases used to find articles. The electronic library for Minnesota is provided by the state, and we provide access to that. And then there are a number of databases that SELCO provides for the online libraries. And of course, those are not useful if people can't get to them. We're not allowed to let the entire world use any of the databases. So there has to be some kind of authentication, which basically is the system that controls what patrons can use which databases. Sometimes that's done based on location. Anyone in your library is pretty much automatically allowed to use those. It can also be done based on IP addresses in some cases. So any patron in southeastern Minnesota, regardless of where they're at, can get to those resources because they do have a local ISP, or excuse me, a local IP address. And then sometimes it's based on having a record in the Horizon system, in which case the patron has to put in their barcode number. All three of these models are used for different databases. Depends on the vendor, and it depends on how the library wants to use those. And libraries sometimes provide their own databases and resources. There are other things out there besides just what the state and SELCO are providing. A number of libraries have resources like Freegal, which is music, or online systems for checking out laptops and iPads. Those also have to run through authentication to make sure that the people using those resources are actual library patrons. And we work with the libraries to make sure that the settings are correct on that. Some libraries will provide access to patrons of some other libraries in that general vicinity, for example. That's all done through authentication. And that is a very short version of the services that we provide. So hopefully, if you've been around for a while, this was a good refresher. If you're new, hopefully that will give you kind of a broad idea of what we're doing. And if you have any questions or comments, you know where to find me.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see you here. As we're getting somewhat sort of close-ish to the end of the OCLC reclamation process, with any luck at all, we will be done by the end of the calendar year. We thought we'd like to cover some cataloging updates and some reminders for some best practices to go over since we're through the reclamation process. A few things have updated and a few things have changed. So for those of you who have been reclaimed or are going to be reclaimed soon, given that we're now needing to match our records more closely with the record that's in OCLC, here are a couple of best practices for you. If you can avoid limiting edits of any of the major fields, 245, 260, 264, 300 for those of you who don't speak cataloger. That's your title fields, that's your publication fields, and that's your extent fields. Page numbers, dimensions, that kind of thing. If you can limit any major edits of those, that is super helpful. If you come across any errors in those fields when you're cataloging, if a record hasn't been completely filled out in OCLC, please let the help desk know. We have authorities to edit the records that are in OCLC. So then they're correct, so we're leaving their database a cleaner place for people who come after us as well. Please leave the 035 field in the record. Once again, translator for catalog speak, that's the OCLC number. And much like our bib numbers in Horizon are unique to a single bib in Horizon, an OCLC number is unique to records in OCLC. One OCLC number per record. So we try and keep those as clean as possible. If you notice records in Horizon that are missing information, if you notice a record that's got 3 or 4 OCLC numbers in it and go, that's not right, please, please, please let the help desk know. Send us a quick email with a bib number. We'd love to take care of that for you, because when we've got more than one OCLC number in a record, it means that our holdings for your library and for the SELCO region are scattered over a few different records. And that's not good because all of your records or all of your items in Horizon are on one bib. So we'd like to keep it as clean as possible. We'd like to keep your holdings as accurate in OCLC as possible for anyone outside of the region or within the region looking in WorldCat for your materials.
So you don't want us editing 300 anymore?
Not drastically. Like if it, for example, if it just says pages CM and it doesn't have the page numbers or the extent or anything, you can feel free to add those, but if you do add those, please send an email to the help desk because then we'll be able to add those page numbers into the OCLC record as well.
Wow, you're going to get a lot of emails.
A lot of emails.
Lots of emails.
Every new book almost.
Yeah. Really? That's going to take us a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
Well, that's something we'll certainly talk about, and maybe it's something that we'd like to talk on the catalogers listserv as well. But the reason we're asking you to limit those edits is because when we send your holdings to OCLC through our automated processes, we want to make sure that your holdings are matching on the correct bibs from OCLC. And if those fields have changed drastically, we get error files back from OCLC that say, this holding hasn't matched, this holding hasn't matched, this holding hasn't matched. And we go through those manually to make sure your holdings are accurate in OCLC.
So when you copycat do that, would that be what you would do instead of us sending it? I mean, either way, you're going to be fixing it?
Either way, we're going to be touching the record one way or another. Are you bringing, when you're bringing in records, are you bringing in fully cataloged records from OCLC? They just don't have the pages or extents?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious as to how many you're running across that are that incomplete when you're bringing in records.
When you do pre-pub, it happens all the time.
Oh, pre-publication is a completely different story. Well, if you've got, let me back up a second. When you're bringing in, like, say, acquisition records or pre-publication records, and you're bringing in those bibs as placeholders in the catalog, you're leaving them as IP. It's kind of just that place that exists for your items to exist before you actually have the record in hand. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No,
Not sometimes, but not always.
Okay.
For instance, we're bringing in complete records that have no pages listed, nothing about the illustrations that are in the book. and
Okay.
Nothing for the centimeters. And these, otherwise they are complete.
Okay.
Maybe not marked as large print.
Yeah, large. I'm going to cover large print. We're getting there.
And series aren't always complete either.
Yeah, series are.
We're going to talk about series 2. We're getting there.
Probably.
So if we brought one of those and it didn't have page numbers and we added page numbers, then you wanted an email?
Ideally, yeah. I mean, if it's going to create a lot of work for you, some of those will get overlaid through cataloging partners and they'll be updated eventually. But if you're bringing in records that are missing things like series, missing things like page numbers, I mean, ideally, we'd like to be able to provide not only our patrons with the best record possible, but other catalogers that are using OCLC with the best records possible too. And if it's missing things, we'd like to be able to include that information. Yeah, Sherry.
So you want one email per record?
The question from Sherry was 1 email per record, and ideally probably, but I'm sure with all of you cataloging, that's going to be impossible. So it's certainly something that we'll be talking about, I'm sure, in listservs and email conversations to come from here on out.
One record per email rather than a list of them.
Than a list of them. We'll see. We'll see. It's something that we'll need to talk about. So in addition to looking at some of those records, there's a few practices that we'd like you to look at for items that already exist in the system. When you're withdrawing material, removing items from your shelf, instead of just deleting them, we'd really, really appreciate it if you can now mark them withdrawn instead. What withdrawn does is it gives us a signal. We export a list of anything that's withdrawn and then can remove your holdings from OCLC. So you don't have holdings in OCLC for things that aren't on your shelves on your libraries anymore. So instead of just deleting, change them to withdrawn. That'd be fantastic. If you're yes, Bonnie.
I'm sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If you have a quick acquisitions record,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get the book,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a full record for your book, but your holding is over here.
And what you'd like to do is you'd like to merge that brief acquisitions record into the full record and have the full record complete.
Rather than just getting rid of the.
If you do that, and if you notice in the record that there are different OCLC numbers in the two records, your acquisition record maybe had an OCLC number in it, maybe it didn't, but if it's different from the one in the full record, we would really like an email to the help desk, because then we make sure that your item has the correct holdings in OCLC and it's not trying to exist on two different records. But if that brief acquisition record doesn't have an OCLC number in it, by all means, please relink them and merge them to the full record.
And then part 2 of that is.
Yes.
Say I'm cleaning up acquisitions that never did arrive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just want a list of those? Because I don't think I could change the status
Yeah.
of an order or record.
If it's got an OCLC number, then we'd need to know, because then it's got a holding in OCLC. If it doesn't have an OCLC number in it, there's no way for us to attach holdings in OCLC, so we wouldn't need to know.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So I could just delete that record.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Acquisitions. So that covers any items that are available that you'd be withdrawing. The other thing to remember, if you're deleting lost items, I know oftentimes those will get deleted instead of getting changed to withdrawn for fine reasons or other reasons that you may be deleting a lost item. When you delete lost items and it's the last copy you have on a bib, either send a list of those items to the help desk with the bib numbers, or you can go ahead and delete the lost item from Horizon and create a dummy item on the bib with a status of withdrawn. Either way will get your item into a list and we can get your holdings removed from OCLC, whichever is easier for you to do. We've kind of got two dual systems existing at the moment for dealing with lost item deletes. And if you've got any questions about those, feel free to contact the help desk. Feel free to email me. We just don't want them disappearing without your holdings in OCLC disappearing as well. And a couple of best practice cataloging reminders. A while ago, probably a year ago now, Cheryl and I sat down and created a new field to replace the GMD, which disappeared with the advent of RDA. 339 is a field that needs to exist in records that you bring in for all records except regular print. Large print, audiobooks, DVDs, Blu-rays. If it's not large print, it needs a 339. Regular print. Did I say large print?
Yes.
Large print needs a 339. And the same goes for 007s. 007s are what makes those lovely little resource icons in Enterprise work. It's how you can tell that this is a DVD. It's how you can tell this is large print. So the same thing goes for 007s that goes for 339s. If it's not regular print, it needs an 007. Again, we know that patrons love their series. And so for us to be able to keep track of those, if the record has a 490-0, So it's just got the 490 in the record. Please just leave that as is. When we send our records to Marchive, Marchive is looking at every single series statement that is a 490 and sending those back to me to look at. Once they've been sent, I can see if there is an authority in OCLC created by the Library of Congress for that series, and I'm adding them in so your series stay current. If the book has a series statement and there isn't a series statement in the record, which happens a lot, we see it a ton, please enter in a 490, and once those have been sent to Marchive, I'll check and make sure that it has an authorized heading in the record. 490s are searchable in Enterprise, as they are in Horizon. So if people are looking for those series, even if it just has that one field, patrons are going to find it if they're looking for it. And now on to updates. We've been telling you about this for a long time. You've heard it coming for a long time, but the Library of Congress has finally released the first list of Library of Congress genre fiction headings for fiction. We've been working for a long time under the weird hybrid system of other genre headings, but the terms are finally coming in for fiction. Those terms are identified by a 655 field, second indicator of 7, subfield 2 of LCGFT. And this is a lot of cataloger speak, so if you're not a cataloger and your eyes are glazing over, I totally understand. There are some major changes with the genre fields that things used to look like and things aren't looking like it now, because of course they did. So detective, the genre term for detective and mystery stories is now detective and mystery fiction. Love stories has changed to romance fiction. Adventure stories has changed to action and adventure fiction. So there are some terminology changes that we have slowly but surely been changing and updating in Horizon. The other main thing to remember with these headings is that they are not subdividable. So they're just going to exist in the record on their own. No dates behind them, no place divisions behind them. They're just standard genre headings. So we should be seeing new records coming in with them as more people apply them. Hopefully, we'll be able to start seeing them. Tyler and I have been going through and updating the ones that already exist in our system, which takes a lot of doing, as we almost have 20,000 books with the term detective and mystery stories in them. But we've been changing those in bulk, and you should start seeing those changes reflected in the catalog. If you're interested in a full list of them, they're available from the Library of Congress website. I can direct you there if you're interested in seeing a full list. And you'll notice in the first slide I said first list. This is the first list of at least 2 that I know of. The second list isn't coming out until December, which means we'll probably, if they have their act together and if they approve it in December, like they say they're going to, we'll probably start making those changes in January at the earliest. So if you see records with the old terms, if you feel comfortable changing them over to the new terms, feel free. We'll probably be going through the database on a semi-regular basis and changing over any old headings to reflect the new headings once we see them. And last but not least, right now, if you're a cataloger for the schools and everything I just said made your eyes glaze over and say, I don't want to do this, we have an option for you. We offer a service, it's a value-added service that's contract cataloging for schools. It's 20 items a month that are cataloged by SELCO. You send your items in delivery, they get dropped off on my desk, I bring in records for them, I put the record number on a little post-it note on the front and ship it back to you in delivery. When you get them back, all you need to do is add the item to the bib number that's on that little Post-it note. For those of you who know Dewey Day, it works just like Dewey Day. It's less than $100 for the year for the schools, so if you're a school and it's something that you're interested in, please let me know and we'd be more than happy to get you set up with that service. There's still cataloging available for publics as well, and if this goes well for the schools, it might be something we look at rolling out to the public libraries as well. It's something we'll certainly have to look at and see how the numbers shake out, but that might be a possibility in the future. So if you're a school and you're interested, please let me know. Any other questions? Yes, Sherry.
Dewey Day, will you be doing that again this year?
Sherry wanted to know if we're doing Dewey Day this year, and hopefully, if things go well, yes, we will be doing the ever popular Dewey Day items once again. It'll probably be pretty similar to how we did it last year and about the same timing. You'll see more information coming out on that probably around November. Any other questions? Yes, Bev.
If an item is missing on your inventory for over a year,
Mm-hmm.
should you withdraw it?
Bev wanted to know if an item's been missing for more than a year, if you should withdraw it. And I would say that's up to you as a library. Some people hold out hope that it's going to come back. Some people just kind of go, you know what, I'm going to cut my losses and pull it out. But that's completely up to you.
Don't you have a purge that you do with the missings?
We have a purge that we do with withdrawns.
But not with missing.
Not that I'm aware of, unless someone has additional information that I'm not aware of.
I think you had heard that missing items have been purged on request of the libraries
Okay.
rather than on a SELCO schedule. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I know we purge withdrawns on a pretty regular, I believe monthly basis if we get our act together, but withdrawns get purged on a regular basis. Missings are pretty much on the request or schedule of the libraries themselves.
Or the missing inventory, which is...
Missing inventory is something completely different, and if you've still got missing inventory and you've been done with your inventory cleanup for a while, we should talk.
Okay.
Any other questions?
How about lost items? Do they stay there forever? unless
Lost items are set up through Horizon in a rollover table that they will roll over from lost to missing, and that's certainly something that you can send an email into the help desk and see what your schedule is set up to do. But I don't know what yours is off the top of my head.
So every library has a different amount of time when an item goes from lost to missing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anything else?
So I'm going to stand close enough to you so we get the microphone. So I understand that we need to have some more discussion about cataloging and the OCLC records and importing and how the procedure is going to work to notify Becky and the other catalogers. It is important for us to keep our database clean, but just to keep, the bigger picture in mind as well, as of January, maybe March, the method by which we search for min links, so that's all the patrons in the whole of the state, will be using an OCLC. So it's not just clean the records for SELCO patrons and SELCO use, but we are also then affecting the searching mechanism for all of MinLink. So I understand the workflow issues. We need to work that out because we don't want to create more work for you. But that use of the OCLC records moves into a whole nother category of importance with the new MinLink gateway that goes live this winter. Okay.
And with that, we're moving on.
I would like to ask one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're seeing that we're making the same You let us know, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. If it's a repetitive thing that we've seen, I will pop off an email that just said, hey, I've noticed that you've been forgetting to change your bibs from IP to CC for a couple of weeks now. Just a gentle reminder that that would be fun. It's certainly not anything that I do on a regular basis because I know you're all good catalogers and I know you've all been doing this for a very long time. But if we notice things and it's becoming a pattern, we'll definitely let you know. And if you have questions about records, if you're wondering where you are in the OCLC projects, if you're wondering if something in your workflow or something you've been doing is throwing off something, please, please, please let us know. I'd rather have you ask the questions than be going, oh, I don't know if I'm doing this right. So please, please, please let us know.
I guess what's disheartening is that old CLC is not perfect either.
Oh, absolutely not.
And when you feel you are creating a better record for yourself, your patrons, and your staff, and you're not allowed to.
Oh, I'm...
That is, and because OCLC does not recognize it yet, and how long is it going to take for them to figure out that that author does have a new name? I don't know. I don't put books on shelves anymore because of that. I've thrown books away I've ordered because the record does not reflect the book anymore.
And if you're making changes that you feel better reflect the book, that you think is increasing accessibility, is increasing access for your patrons, I would love to know, because I would love to see if there's a way that we can also improve the OCLC record. Because if you're unhappy with it, chances are there are other librarians and other catalogers who are feeling the same way. And if there's anything that I can do to work with any of the authority records that are in OCLC, there are some things that are out of my control with authorities. But if you're seeing records that are missing series, that are missing page numbers, then you're adding those things to increase the accessibility for not only your patrons, but I would love to add those to the OCLC record so other patrons and other librarians and other catalogers who are using OCLC from across the country have better access to those records as well.
Authority to do that.
I can change certain things in OCLC records. I can make changes to OCLC records, I can add page numbers, I can add series. What I cannot do is I cannot create and I cannot edit authority records. So that's anything like I can't create an authorized subject heading. I can't create a new authority record based on a change from an author. That needs to, we would have to go through a lot of certification for that to happen. That gets done through the Library of Congress and other members. So there are certain things I can do and there are certain things I cannot do. But if it's in the base of a record, there are some things I can do. Sherry.
Although I know it is possible to contact Library of Congress, Bonnie.
Yes, it is.
If you have information about an author and say, these dates are wrong, or this is a different author from such and such, and they can change the authority. I have done that.
Okay.
Yeah, you certainly can.
I think it's on, there's a contact thing on the LC auth page.
Yeah, Sherry, for those of you who didn't hear and for the sake of the recording, Sherry reminded us that yes, we can contact the Library of Congress and the authority people to let them know if there are errors in any authority records, and they will look into it and make those changes, because I know they do a fair amount of research to make those authorities, and if they've got new information or things have changed, I'm sure they'd like to know, because they'd like things to be as accurate as possible too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we move on?
You're not gonna be like putting up pictures and throwing darts at them, right?
Nope.
Of course.
What happens
I ride my bike to work. I get a lot of aggression out on the road with other drivers. It's good.
So
Okie dokes.
So, online training. Those of you who remember, I did a session on this back in January of last year as well, but then again, it's been a while, and some of you are new. And add into that, this last summer, Becky and I have been doing a lot of work on this. So one of the things we came up with last fiscal cycle before last, was an online training component grant that we got through the state library, which is basically to go out there and find some software that would work for us to get all of our training online so we can get it out there for people to see and use, rather than having classes once a quarter, which is about all we can handle, and then we still end up canceling half of them because no one can make them. So we've gone out there and we do have an online component for training, which is called Cloth internally. And it's through a company called Talent LMS. LMS is a learning management system. I went to a whole conference about training. It was interesting, really interesting. It was mostly for-profit institutes, so I'm like, wow, you people are really into some of this stuff. But anyway, it is out there. There's a link for it on the SELCO website. When you go to the training section, there's a quick link up on top to get to training, or if you go down to services, you can get to training down there as well. It's under continuing education. So that is where it is, little link, and I'll be happy to show parts of it off later depending on how we're doing on time. We are running a few minutes late at this point. And as for available content in there, when we last talked back in January, I had Circulation 1 in there. Since then, I have vastly expanded Circulation 1 to include more topics, more handouts, a few more videos, and added in a couple more quizzes, changed a little bit of the course organization around just so it works a little bit better. We have also added in add items. Becky has got in the cataloging basics?
Fundamentals.
That's the name of that one. The first cataloging course, and we'll slowly be working on the Beyond Copy cataloging course in there as well. Yep. Circulation 2 is in there. Bare bones version of acquisitions is in there. It should be revised since Becky and I have taken a little bit more training on acquisitions at this point. Eventually, we're going to get serials in there once someone understands serials.
Which maybe never.
Which maybe never. And then I'm hoping to expand it beyond just the ILS and maybe put some basics overdrive support in there and how to do things in overdrive like return titles for a patron and things like that. But ILS is top priority on this one. And when it comes to the system, it is an individual sign-on sort of thing. You just go in and create your account. I've changed it so it auto-approves the accounts at this point, and you just go in and sign up for your courses. It's not linked to any other sign-in, so you don't need to worry about that. Staff members can get this started before they even have a sign-in for Horizon if they want to, although I'd recommend having a sign-in for Horizon so you could like tab over and see, does this work? Okay, that's how it's going. And it's easy to manage like that. That's something else I was going to say about an individual sign-on. That's it. There are some prerequisites for the courses. At this point, I believe the only one that's actually set hardcore into the system is you need to take Circulation 1 before you can take Circ 2, because that makes sense. And I think we were talking about the cataloging ones being sequential as well. I'm not quite sure how we're going to handle that one yet. And I am going to make acquisitions and serials require you to take Circ 1 as well, just because Circ 1 is the basics. You need to understand that before you move on to anything else. Do you have anything you want to add to this slide?
Nope.
Okay. Hey, I covered this stuff. I'm awesome.
Ta-da!
And Tyler, just so you could put it for the record, we're also working on WordPress at the moment, so if people need updates on WordPress.
Okay. We're also working on
Awesome.
the WordPress one. That was one of the extracurricular ones, but I did forget to actually mention that one. So yeah, circulation, cataloging, component classes, that's my phrase for add items, because we don't actually teach an add items class because it's 10 minutes. We just do it whenever or over the phone. And so much of it is local, it's hard to actually teach that one, more so than any other one. When it comes to the courses, we do have several different parts to each one. When you go in there, there's different kinds of pages to them. There are ones that are purely text, like this is your block, this is what you need to understand about local request. This is how it works, the regional system, the regional decisions behind it. We have some that are walkthroughs in there, like this is how you mark an item lost manually rather than waiting for the system to do it. We have links to handouts in there. The cataloging manual has been created since 2-3 years ago. Love that thing. Slowly working on creating a circulation one based off of this, so we can get a little bit more out there. There are visual ones. We have screenshots in there. We have linked into the courses SELCOtv episodes, the ones that we've had out there. We've had video training out on SELCOtv for quite a while, and we do go through and update that. But now it's built into the courses as well. There is some repetitiveness to this, because that's good for education and people learn in different styles. But if you're going through these courses and you are much more a reading-based person than someone who watches a video, like me, I hate watching videos for training. I'd much rather read the documentation and try it out myself. You can skip over like the video segments, or you can skip over the text segments and just watch the video. They are, for the most part, redundant. There are a few things that are missing between one and the other, and we're working on getting that sorted out between them. Okay, the other thing we have in there are they actually tests or are they quizzes? I don't remember the terminology.
I think it's quizzes, and they probably should be called quizzes because for the most part, they're 15 questions or less.
Oh God, mine are mostly 5 questions or less.
I think mine are mostly 10 or less. It depends on the unit.
Yeah. So in the courses, I believe all of them are currently set up to be sequential, which means you must go from one slide to the next, which that's fine if you're skipping stuff too, because you don't have to spend any time on the slide or anything. But when it comes to a certain point in the course, mine are usually after every section or every 2 sections. There is a brief little quiz in there with, well, I have some that are down to 3 questions, but apparently Becky's ambitious and has about 15 on some of hers.
There's a lot to cataloging.
There are quizzes which do require that you complete the quiz to get through to move on to the next section. And it requires a certain break point, the number of points right to get through the quiz before you can actually pass on. And I believe both of us has ours set up that you can retake the quiz, but only a certain number of times before you need to contact the instructor. And we do get reports when people take these quizzes on when people succeed or fail on them, so we have an idea of what to watch out for if anyone's going to contact us.
And if we need to make our training better.
Yeah, and that too. Because God only knows this is our first real experiment in something like this, so we need to know how it's working from your perspective as well. So you'll get through the content sections, the quizzes, and eventually you'll get to, do you have a cumulative quiz on yours?
I don't.
Neither do I. So you'll get through the last quiz, and then the last section, I believe in all the courses right now, is a little survey to tell us what you think about the online training. And be brutally honest, I will probably cry over the results because I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to this sort of stuff. I know how to teach people some stuff, but online training is so vastly different.
Weird.
But after that survey is completed, that is the end of the course, and it sends off an email to the instructors for the course, which is me and Rachel for circulation, Becky and, well, me again for cataloging, even though I don't teach it, and Cheryl for cataloging. And that will also let us know that, okay, well, for Becky's sake at least, they've completed cataloging. I believe you're feeling comfortable at this point to upgrade their cataloging privileges in Horizon if they've passed the course. And I'm certainly comfortable doing that for Circulation 2. Circ 1, I still need an account actually created, and everyone gets Circ 1 privileges automatically when an account's created, so there's that. Certification comes up when you complete the course. That's basically what I was just talking about, and notification, and we'll adjust the permissions. I really talk a lot more than I should before I move on to the next slide, don't I? It's a problem.
A little bit.
But I think that's the last one too, isn't it?
That's it.
Okay, as the other trainer in the room who has been working on cloth, Rachel isn't one of our trainers. You haven't had much chance to work with cloth yet, but do you have anything else you would like to add?
If the other thing I will say that once you have completed a course, you can log back into the system and re-look at a certain section or a certain video if something has slipped your mind or if you want to look over something again. So if you're feeling shaky on something, or you are at school and you came back and your computer's wiped and you don't have your OCLC setup folder anymore, you can watch that particular video and know how to set it up. So it's not only, we've kind of designed it to not only be a sequential training course, but also as kind of an online resource for some of those questions that you come up with when you're sitting at your desk doing these things.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the group?
So in other words, we have to take the course again, even though we've had it here, in order to go access.
Okay, she's asking if you need to take the course again in order to get access. I'm not sure.
No?
You can just skip through and take the quizzes really quick.
You're gonna take our.
Yeah, we're not taking your permissions
No,
away
we're
if
not
you've already
taking
taken it
permissions
here.
away.
No, 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 no.
We want to look something up in the course, you know, this particular, or one particular part of cataloging that we want to review. We have to go through the whole thing first.
Probably yes, as far as I'm aware.
You can't test out.
You could test out just by going through and taking each
You
test
could
as it goes
just
through.
click
You don't
through all
need
the
to read all
slides
the
real
sections.
quick and take the test real quick and have
Seriously.
access to everything.
If you've been doing this for a while, the questions aren't that hard.
We promise, they're not that bad.
How do you get to this site?
There's links on the SELCO website under the training section, or it's selco.talentlms.com.
Can you do it as a group? Like if you have more than one employee that needs training?
We'd only get an email for the person who registered for it and is signed in going through it, but you certainly could have a group of people sit down and send us an email afterwards and let us know.
Who took the training?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Related to that, I've had a question this week about if, you know, this one location wanted to train a couple different people and they just wanted to have a generic login for cloth. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Do you have a mic on?
No.
Okay, Rachel was talking about she had a question from a location asking if they should have individual logins or a collective one. When it comes to registering for cloth, I would much prefer people had individual logins. That way we can track things like permissions. I'm not a fan of generic accounts, basically ever.
And it's also helpful for us as instructors to see where individual people may have had difficulties with a certain section, whether that's just particularly for that particular person or if it's something we need to change in our training. It's nice to have those individualized accounts to be able to see and track that kind of thing.
Thanks.
Anything else? Yes, Rhonda.
So is this the only option, or are you still going to be doing training here?
Rhonda is asking if this is the only option. No, it is not. We'll still be offering our classes, at least for the time being. We'll see how this goes. Anything else, or shall we move on? Here's just a basic view of the learner section and the courses out there. You won't see all these because I am also an admin and I can see the hidden ones.
Everything.
But you can also see I'm only 31% of the way through Circulation 1.
And 13%
I
through
created
cataloging
it.
fundamentals. What?
I was trying out your quiz.
Could you please show us how,
Sure.
From the website, where to go?
Oh, from the website. SELCO. No, don't get into the admin login. There is the training link right up here, or you can come down to services, continuing education, and go to training. Either of those take you to the same page. Stupid mouse pad. And then the link is right here to SELCO Cloth. But here's like some of the text ones, got some pictures in this with some walkthrough-y stuff. SELCOtv integration.
So if you have a new person, do we need to let the help desk know to give them a log on?
Nope, you can create your own for this
You
one.
create your own. So when you first click on that link, it'll take
Where
you,
is
since
my
Tyler was
quiz?
already logged in, it'll take you to a splash page that's basically our logo, our cloth, and it'll have basically a username and password box. And if you don't have one already, there's a link to create one there, and you can do that on your own.
Okay.
So we don't need to contact
Nope.
Nope.
staff anymore. Okay.
And the formal word is actually test, so.
You'll need to fill out still the user account form for them to have an account in Horizon, but for training, they can do it themselves. Mm-hmm.
Here's what one, it's actually test, so oops.
Oh, it is test. Oh.
So here's what one of the tests looks like. Book arrives through delivery and you check it out to a patron. Whose circulation does the interaction follow? It follows the items libraries.
Can we go back to the previous question?
You can transition around. This one, was that what it was? Because I was moving randomly, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Collecting overdue fine, where's the money go? It goes to the collecting library. Unless you want to send it to me at SELCO.
Make checks out too.
Okay. Otherwise, shall we move on? Okay, now this is kind of a Band-Aid presentation because we wanted to get something out there, but our main person who worked on this is not currently available. So I'm just creating this presentation kind of ad hoc with little bits of information that we know should be out there. I might be able to answer some questions for you. I might not because I'm not that in tune with this project. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the Popular Works collection. I did put a creation one. So there's the Collection HQ project that was going on last year through LSTA. As part of that, we got a Baker and Taylor credit for our use of Collection HQ project. I'm not going to go into the details on that one right now because I would need a drink. But basically, we had some credit to buy materials, and SELCO decided that we would purchase some popular collection items at the time just so we could run some experiments on it, have a control group versus the regional policies affecting ILL and local request, things like that. So we went out and purchased these items and created their own separate I-types. They have no real restrictions on them whatsoever, including they don't have any priority for SELCO staff to get them if we place a request on them. So that was the idea behind it, no priority whatsoever. They are bound to the region, meaning that they were set not to go out to MinLink ever. They did stay in the region for it, so we could see how things went. And some of them were sent to our individual libraries to live at their locations, but still follow our circulation rules, and see how that went. So the one thing that we did notice here in SELCO is requesting had some interesting effects on them. Currently, we have 52 of the items sitting available either on our shelves or yours out of the 84 that exist in this collection. I looked through them yesterday, and out of them, 13 could be filling requests in the region right now, but they are sitting on shelves because all of these requests were placed on item level. So our items are not going out to fill them. Well, honestly, a number of them have also gotten to the point where the work is old enough that there aren't any remaining requests on it in the region, or the ones that are out there have already been filled. Of the titles which still have requests on them, meaning more than about 20 requests, I looked at the request queues for all of them, and about the top third of them were a majority of item-specific requests, which is showing me that these item-specific requests are sitting out there and not being filled, while bib requests have been. So that's what I'm saying. And I looked at one of them, and it had an item-specific request going back to January 15th that has yet to be filled, while the oldest bib level request was September 12th. So that patron has been waiting for that book for 8 months now, while everyone else's requests have been filled just because they've placed an item level request on it. So what we're seeing as SELCO staff is a number of these items aren't filling requests when they could be, and that is really kind of irksome to us and probably to our patrons as well out there. And it's item level requests. They create problems. Like, for example, I was talking to Becky, I'm totally dragging you into this, and she had an item checked out and she's like, I'm not quite done yet. I need to renew it. She went in to renew it. She could not because there was a request out on it. She looked at the bib. There were 7 copies available in the region. Someone had placed an item level request on it, meaning she couldn't renew her copy even though there were other ones out there. So that's what we're seeing so far with requesting. A lot of item-specific requests when they are unnecessary. I don't really know what the implications are on LR. Maybe Cheryl would have some more information on that when she returns, but we started seeing this a while ago that our copies are coming back in while there's still a number of requests out there and filling up our shelves, and they could have been filling other ones. So we just want to make people in the region aware of this. I would recommend, well, for one thing, if you have the opportunity to explain it to your patrons, the difference between item-specific requesting and bib-level requesting, and encouraging bib-level when possible. Of course, the exceptions exist for the magazines and the DVD, TV series, which are broken out into the discs, or other things that are broken out like that. Or in a situation where you need a specific one, like I absolutely need that one that has the one preface, which I think that's happened like twice ever. And also, remember that you can go in and see all the requests for your region through the circulation reports window in Horizon. I recommend, well, SELCO recommends going in regularly and checking through your requests and seeing if there are any item-specific requests which should be changed to bid level ones to get a higher priority so they get filled. One concern that came up in my CERC 2 class last week, was there was some confusion, it sounds like, about whose items go to fill a request. Hopefully most of you know at this point that the circulation rules in the region follow the dustiest book in the region, meaning the one that has been sitting available the longest on the shelf. And then hopefully most of you know the exception to that as well, which is there is location priority to fill requests. If your copy is available on the shelf, your copy will go to fill your patron's request before the dustiest book will. So I know that student was talking about it, and she's like, oh, but I want our copy filling our request. I'm like, it will. The system is set up to do that first before it goes on to the next step. Okay, I'm certainly willing to field any questions so they go on the recording. Like I said, I might not be able to answer them. So, what do you got for me?
What do you mean by item-specific request? Is that when
Request
you
this
select
copy
that
only.
item? Okay. And you don't want us to do that?
Generally, every once in a while it gets things faster for you, but generally it can screw up the system and slow things down a bit. So I always recommend bib level requests, except for when you need to place an item level one. Okay, if that is all, I'm certainly willing to release you for your break. We're a little bit behind, but I can half. So let's take 10 minutes and be back at a couple minutes before the hour.